Good morning, everyone. I'm Lynn Henson, and I want to welcome you to the Neighborhood Resilience Plan meeting for Edgebrook. Neighborhood resilience is focused on bringing additional resources to communities and increasing the ability for neighborhoods and the community at large to prepare for and recover from shocks and stressors. So you can think about shocks and stressors being climate events like hurricanes, sometimes tornadoes, and floods in Houston. It can also include things like extreme heat. We're experiencing that right now, and extreme cold like we saw last year during Storm Uri. Resilience also includes things that are important to the community in other ways, like economic development or modernizing infrastructure, and even social empowerment. That can also include things like health. Next slide. First, I want to take a little bit of time to do some housekeeping. We're using Zoom today, and I want to make sure that everyone knows that they can raise their hand in order to speak. But at the same time, I ask that you listen to our presentation, because we may answer many of the questions that you might have throughout that presentation. If you have questions, the best time to ask those questions will be at breaks or in our breakout session. And we will have a breakout session so that you can not only ask questions, but so that you can dialogue with the facilitators. We'd like it to be an open discussion about resilience and how to improve your community. Once we get there on Zoom, it's *6 to unmute and mute yourself. *9 if you're on the phone to raise your hand and lower your hand. And I'd like to do this in Spanish as well. So, buenos días. Soy Lynn Henson y trabajo a la ciudad de Houston. Esta reunión es para resiliencia del barrio. Si necesita traducción, pregúntame ahora o presione la función de levantar la mano, porque hay personas que hablar contigo en español, y tendremos una sala de descanso totalmente en español. And I want to ask Jose if you'll fill in and let everyone know how to use the prompts at the bottom in Spanish.
Gracias, Lynn. Thank you, Lynn. Voy a dar las instrucciones sobre el acceso lingüístico, primero en español y después en inglés. So I'm going to give a few instructions on language access, first in Spanish and then in English. Hola, les queremos dar la bienvenida. El día de hoy vamos a poder tener una discusión bilingüe y tenemos algunas opciones de acceso lingüístico. La primera es pueden usar los subtítulos, hagan clic en el botón que dice subtítulos o CC y pueden escoger traducir a el idioma que les gustaría ver los subtítulos. La segunda opción es, Nopor, if you could share the instruction slide. Y también Nopor ahorita va a compartir la diapositiva con instrucciones, pero mientras lo hace, vamos a tener un botoncito en la parte inferior de su pantalla que dice interpretación. Van a hacer clic en ese botón, van a escoger interpretación de idiomas y seleccionar el idioma en el que les gustaría escuchar y participar el día de hoy. Si nos acompaña a través de su celular o tablet, puede hacer clic en los 3 puntitos que están en la parte de abajo y de nuevo escoger interpretación de idiomas y también escoger el idioma en el que les gustaría participar. Si tienen cualquier problema, por favor, déjenos saber a través del chat y con mucho gusto les ayudamos. Hi, everyone. So today we're going to try to have a bilingual discussion, and we have a couple of language access options for you. The first one is going to be the caption. So you can click on the little button that says CC, and then select translate to, and choose the language that you would like the captions to be in. The second option is going to be interpretation, so you'll be able to hear it. And you can click on the little globe icon that's at the bottom of your screen that says interpretation, select the language in which you would like to listen and participate in, and then click done. If you are joining us by your cell phone or tablet, you can click on the three little dots that are at the bottom part of your screen. And again, select language interpretation and then the language that you will be using today. I do want to encourage English speakers who don't speak or understand Spanish to also select English, as we hope to be able to have back and forth discussion if it is possible in the room. If you have any issues with the interpretation, please let us know through the chat and we'd be more than happy to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. Next slide. As I go through the agenda, I want to ask you to type your name in the chat. And if you represent an organization, your civic club, or your religious organization or educational organization, please include that in the chat. We'd love to know who's here today. You can also sign in using the link that's provided in the chat. Oh, I think I may have, Marcus, I'd like to ask you if you would place in the chat the link to Edgebrook. So I apologize, I put the wrong link in the chat, but Marcus can let you have that chat link to Edgebrook sign-in sheet for today. So what we're gonna do today is go through a presentation to really explain why we're here, what is neighborhood resilience planning, and why this framework. We'll go through the objectives and talk about the climate impacts, and then give you an opportunity to discuss this with us, to ask any questions and provide feedback in breakout groups. After the breakout groups, we'd like everyone to come back into the main room and we'll wrap up the session. Last but not least is to discuss a few services that the city provides. Next slide. The boundary for Edgebrook is the super neighborhood boundary. And I just want to acknowledge that we recognize there are many neighborhoods across the city of Houston that need additional resources. This planning effort is new for the city of Houston, and we are starting with 3 communities, of which Edgebrook is one of those 3 communities. I want to take the opportunity to thank the Super Neighborhood Support Team. Those are the individuals and members that we spoke to initially. They are leaders in the community. They are active in the community. They have great and deep passion for Edgebrook. That includes Curtis Kinsley, Ray Soto, Liz Hicks, Heather Ayote, Julia Salas, Carla Batres, and Jose Rosales. So I want to give a special thanks to you for your support and guidance, which helped us in the process that we're developing, making sure we know and understand Edgebrook separate from other communities, because every community is special, and every community communicates, works together, and has different concerns that they need to have expressed. There are also others in the community that have been active and participating, so I want to thank you all. We've had a number of what we call sticky events, and those are events that are happening in the community. We've brought this planning process to those events, and we're having this closing public event through the City of Houston's direct invitation. We know that there is some planning that has already gone on in the community, and that includes the CCDI flood from 2020, the Collaborative Community Design Initiative put together this document. It is with CDRC of University of Houston, and I believe I saw Susan Rogers on the call. Thank you for being here. And I bring this up because We know that some of the issues have already been expressed, and we're listening. We've listened to those comments. We're using these sticky meetings and today's events to gain additional insight and information so that we can develop a plan and implementation strategies to bring that plan to life. Next slide. I want to introduce who's on the call today and who we are as a team. I'm going to go through the names quickly, so if you can turn your cameras on and wave. Greetings from Director Margaret Wallace Brown of the Planning Department. She's not on the call today. Jennifer Oslin is our Deputy Director. Marcus Tucker, our Project Coordinator. Jenny Lai, a planner within the Planning Department, as well as I want to acknowledge Priya Zachariah, the Chief Resiliency and Sustainability Officer, as well as Yaneth Calderon, who works in her office, and the Housing and Community Development Department, who funded this process. I want to thank all of them for being here and working hard on this plan. I would also like to introduce the team that we have working with the City of Houston. That is the One Architecture team. You'll see the organizations that make up the One Architecture team on the slide, and I want to call out who's with us today. Matthias Bao, who is the lead for the One Architecture team, Dalia Munezem, Rini Jones, Nupir Roy Chandri, Danielle Getzinger, Ms. Cleo, Teresa Anthony, Marcus Glenn. And if I've missed anyone, please turn your cameras on and let everyone know that you're with us today. And at the time I started, I did not see anyone from the council member's office, but if there are any elected officials online that I have missed seeing in the chat, please turn your cameras and mics on and let us know you're in the meeting today. I do want to thank the council member for providing information and support for this process as well. Next slide. So why neighborhood resilience plans? What does this mean? Well, again, we recognize that there are neighborhoods in the City of Houston that still need support. And through Resilient Houston, which is a citywide plan that addresses resiliency and sustainability, Resilience Houston came up with an urban resilience definition. And that definition is, I'm going to read this, the capacity of individuals, communities, institutions, businesses, and systems within urban areas to survive, adapt, and thrive, no matter what kinds of chronic stressors and acute shocks they experience. I want to highlight that in the second chapter of Resilience Houston, if you could go to the next slide, please, is all about neighborhoods. It's all about creating safe neighborhoods, equitable neighborhoods. And one reason I feel is because neighborhoods are at the heart of the community. Without neighborhoods, there would be no City of Houston. Neighborhoods are extremely important. And Resilient Houston recognizes that all 88 super neighborhoods that make up the City of Houston have different needs and priorities. That's one reason why we're here talking to Edgebrook, is because we want to dive into what's important for Edgebrook. This can include flooding or air quality, mobility, economic development. It can include safety, health, housing, and looking at all of these issues and concerns. Again, one size fits all solutions do not work to build resilience on a neighborhood scale. In order to ensure that every neighborhood can develop and implement place-based solutions at the neighborhood scale. We need your input and the input of the community to make this happen. One great thing about this process is our surveys and our information are online on letstalkhouston.org. So if you feel that there are individuals in the community that have not voiced their comments in this process, please send them to that website. The surveys are up and we have the opportunity for additional communication and documenting of what people feel is important to them. Next slide. So today's meeting objective. Resilience is not just about climate events. It can be anything that helps improve the strength of the community. Part of the focus of these workshops will be on environmental and climate related items like Hurricane Harvey and like Storm Uri that happened last year. We also want to hear what is important to you. Flooding, heat, cold, health, housing, health. Tell us through your lived experience. Make sure that what's important to you comes out and is documented. We'll have facilitators to write down what we hear today. Next slide. Your voice, being the residents, being the people that live in the community, work in the community. The City of Houston being one of the main organizations to help implement items and looking at a regional scale. These different levels work together and we need all of them to work together. That's what we refer to as the nested scale. We've heard what's important to you in some of the earlier planning processes. We're listening now. We've listened through some of our NST engagement, and we want to build on that. The goal of this nested scale is to ultimately bring infrastructure and resources to your neighborhood. Next slide, please. This image discusses the overall project timeline, and I want to highlight 3 major points on this timeline. We started discussing this project with our neighborhood support team members. Again, they gave us guidance on how we would go about interacting with the community, and they gave us initial input about what's important. We are in the public event number 1 portion. We've count the neighborhood support team meetings as being very important. They began in April. We took a driving tour through the community with Ray Soto. We attended some of the Civic Club meetings that were happening in the community, all for the same purpose, to get information from you about what's important. We'll formulate strategies that will help the plan and bring those back to you in September, October, to make sure that what we heard is accurate. Get your confirmation that what we heard is correct. In order to bring back a final plan around November. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this neighborhood resilience plan, we feel that it empowers the neighborhood. It helps direct neighborhood-based investments, what's important to the community, all centered around improving quality of life, health, safety, economic development, and other things that are important to you. A part of the final plan will include implementation strategies. We feel that this is very important in the process, that we not just have a plan, but we have a plan with some guidance on how to make these requests be implemented. The concepts and strategies that we hear will be documented and presented at the next community engagement meeting. Next slide. So I'm going to stop here and turn it over to Matthias, who will take you through the next portion of our presentation.
Thank you, Lynn. And I think you've explained much of it, but I want to dive a bit deeper into the project objectives. And these project objectives are really coming from an understanding of what has already happened in the community. There's plans that have been made, conversations that have been had. There is work being done at the city level to improve the resilience. But what we really feel is a central objective of this project is to make sure that the community is a partner in the development of a vision, an idea, and a set of measures to improve the resilience, but also that they have the capacity not only to be this partner, but to be sort of following up, helping to make sure that the different initiatives that come out of this planning process can be implemented. We really feel that capacity building within the community is critical. We also see that while there might be many things happening, sometimes city agencies or work sort of seemingly separately from each other or separately from what the community is already doing. There are some challenges between city and county and states. And what we really want to do is to improve the communication between all the different what you call actors that are involved, because if the communication improves, it's easier to collaborate and to create synergies and to optimize the use of resources and to actually bring resources. It is really critical that after all the planning that has been done, and I'm happy that Susan Rogers is here, who has been really laying much of the groundwork of planning, is that we translate that into identified capital improvement projects that can be implemented, but also into social programs. We understand that resilience has a physical component, but also a very strong social component. A cohesive community where people know how to find each other and how to work together is critical for recovering from disasters, but also for laying the groundwork that future disasters will have less impact. And then we want this process to really establish long-term ideas and policy actions that help transform the neighborhood for the better. And based on that, we like to think that this plan is in many ways different from earlier efforts, but also very much builds on the earlier efforts. This is the plan that is led by the city of Houston, and that gives us a new instruments to address floods and climate resilience, because we have the ability to collaborate within the city to make sure that goals are met and that resources can be directed to the community. It is very much nested within the bigger Resilient Houston plan, so that it can build on existing momentum and investments. Lynn earlier showed this idea of the nested skills. There's a great many things happening or being prepared at the city level, and what this plan does is to sort of link that to the neighborhood and the community that lives in this neighborhood. We've talked earlier about how we want this project to be grounded in community participation, to have the community be a partner and a co-designer of the strategies, and also really to build on on the neighborhood experiences and priorities. And we think that with a team that is composed of local nonprofits, local engineers who have technical expertise, and a number of people who bring sort of national experience in how to do these plans, we have the sort of right team to be, on the one hand, be really connected to you, but at the same time bring experiences from around the country. And we've heard many things so far. We've heard about the community, how schools are a resource. We've met through this process, and I see many of the on the call that there are strong and knowledgeable leaders and activists. And I have to say, I think this is the wrong slide because this also talks about another neighborhood that we are working on. But one of the things that we've also learned is that there are a lot of unmet needs and a lot of challenges. There's a lot of flooding everywhere in Edgebrook, and what makes flooding worse, but what also impacts the flooding is that there's a lot of illegal dumping and solid waste issues. There's inadequate maintenance of the drainage system, and there's also little access to healthy foods. Many people have to travel around the neighborhoods, and all these challenges need to be understood with the fact that many people in the community have already overburdened with meeting the daily needs. So it's just very difficult to think about the sort of disasters that might befall you, or the challenges that the climate crisis brings. And these climate crises are really the sort of underlying elements of this work. We know that we've seen crazy peaks in heat. We've seen also crazy peaks in extreme cold in winter storm Uri, and we know that is gonna continue. Heat waves are getting bigger and longer, and there are going to be many more days a year with temperatures above 100 degrees. We also see, even though there have been a number of really big storms in the last decade, that those big storms are going to increase in frequency and in magnitude. So that's something that the neighborhood needs to be prepared for. And talking about storms, we also understand that it's really important to understand that with a storm come different types of flooding. There's the flooding in the bayou, which happens during the very big storms, when the water levels in a river or stream rises over the banks, and they can flood adjacent areas. But often we've also seen that it doesn't take a Harvey-sized event to create local flooding. Surface flooding occurs in an area when there's more rainfall than the capacity of the stormwater drainage system. And we see that happening in your neighborhood. Often roads and drainage systems are not sufficient to manage the amounts of water that are coming in these rain events, and that are starting to flood homes and other infrastructure. And so, in order to discuss that, we want to have a session in a group. And let's see, we're 23 people now, and I think we have quite a lot of people from the team and the city. And so I wanted to sort of defer to Lynn to see if we all stay together and have a joint conversation, or maybe go in breakout groups. But what we want to do in the next half an hour is to discuss a number of things with you. We'd like to understand better where flooding occurs and where you have experienced damage, and also where damage from earlier storms has not been addressed yet. So that's one part of the conversation. To really, we've done a lot of modeling. There's a lot of data available, which we have mapped. This is a map that shows the floodplains, both the floodway for the drainage systems, as well as the areas that have a 500 a year chance. So that means a 0.2% annual chance of being flooded in any given year, or areas in sort of darker blue that have a 1% annual chance of being flooded every year. We have done a lot of modeling and analysis, but we greatly helped to learn more from your experiences, because these models and those scientific analysis might not actually correspond one-on-one with what the community has experienced. There's always a margin of error, and so we'd like to hear from you. A second element that we would like to talk a bit more about is extreme heat. How is it impacting you? How is it impacting the community? How are cooling centers used or not used? What could be done there? And we want to talk about that within also the background of understanding what happens during winter storm Uri. One, because there might be more winter storms that we need to be prepared for, but also because winter storm Uri really showed how extreme weather events and heat waves are also extreme weather events, how they can impact the energy system and then result in a series of huge problems, from not being able to cool or heat yourself, or not being able to pay for energy bills, not being able to access places to find relief, and so we want to learn more about that. Those are relatively new events that are only now coming to clearly sort of into focus, and as the city is assessing that, we need to learn from that. And then the second part of the breakout session will really focus on the community assets. What are the services or organizations that can actually help you deal with disasters, that you can connect to, and that can help improve the conditions for you or in the neighborhoods. We'd like to get an understanding of what is there, what is important to you, but also what is lacking. So we'll have a short exercise on that. I'll now give it to Lynn to give the final verdict about whether to split up or not, and after that enter the conversation with a little bit more detail. Lynn.
So I want to ask first, ¿hay personas que necesitan traducción o no? Si necesite hablar en español, levante la mano o háblame en español. Okay, I think we're good to have maybe one group, and we can do it in this main room.
Okay, that's perfect. Then I'll go back to sharing my screen and lead you through the get back on this. Here we are. Sorry about this. This technology is always a challenge to, I think, everyone. But here we go. So I've just done a bit of an introduction. But what we'd like to do today is to talk to you about things that I just discussed, and maybe if you hadn't done so in the overall group, you can introduce yourself in the chats. But I think most of you have done that already. And also, if there's things you'd like to share about your neighborhood or the activities in the neighborhood that you enjoy, especially in the summer, we'd like to hear that, because we also know that plans really need to be sort of built upon not only the challenges of the neighborhood, but also the great things that are here. As I said, we'll be talking in 2 sessions. First, understanding the impacts from climate events, and then we'll pivot to talking about what is the access to the community assets and resources. What, by extension, is your capacity to deal with the challenges. And we're with a relatively large group. We have a lot of people from the team and from the city here, but I saw some people from the NST group. I saw a few others. What I really hope is that we can use this session such that the people in the neighborhoods can all voice their opinions and experiences. We are really happy that you're taking the time to be with us this morning, and let's make sure that we use the time effectively and really learn from each other. We appreciate you sharing your experiences. If there are several people speaking, maybe we have a natural flow, but feel free to raise your hands. I will monitor that as well as I can to give you the floor. And since we're not in a breakout session, there's no escape by returning to the main room. But if you need to leave the meeting anytime, please just click leave the meeting. And so here's the sort of overall boards that we have that show the neighborhoods. And we'd like to, when you talk about your experiences, we'd like you, that's why we use maps, to be as specific as possible about the sort of location or the place that certain things happen, or that certain assets are located. And what we have is we have a number of people on the teams who can help with sort of sticky notes or annotate on these maps the places that you talk about or the impacts that you talk about. And the first part is the climate impacts. We'd love to hear what are locations of frequent flooding, what are you experiencing, and maybe also tell us a bit about how flooding impacts affect other issues of well-being. How do they make it more difficult to keep a job or get to a job or do the work that you need to do? How does it impact access to services? What are the health impacts? And also understand better what repairs have been done or still need to be done, and how maybe it impacts also your pocketbook, your wallet through additional expenses, etc. And with that, focusing on the lived experience. And we have 2 ways of approaching this. On the Let's Talk Houston, we have put a map in which pins can be put to demarcate specific locations. I don't think we'll be using that, but we might pivot to that. But we also have the next map to talk to, and I'll see if I can zoom out a bit. And here you see how clumsy I am with my mouse, but I'll zoom out a bit and just like to give the floor to people in the neighborhoods and talk us about the sort of experiences that you have. Anyone wants to weigh in and talk flooding?
Hi there, this is Ray Soto. I'm with the NST team. And I guess I'll kind of run you through what we've been experiencing since we joined the team. But we've been kind of doing this before we joined the NS team, but in having that group behind us and helping us move some of these things to the forefront, we've seen some pretty big improvements. We got our credentials. We were able to move through the neighborhood a little more freely with the acknowledgement that we're being supported as liaisons for the attorney's office. So, and also bringing that to the attention of the different departments, such as flood, Harris County flood control, just the different departments that are handling issues in our community has been a real big change. We're getting a little more respect, we're getting a little more attention, and they're being addressed. We've changed our strategies also by mentioning the support and the people that we have. It just seems to weigh on them as a more important issue. And those things are being addressed slowly, such as the drainage. We've had grocery cart baskets removed from our drainage systems, which were there on our first heavy rain, which we experienced the embankments rising really quick and not draining very fast. Within a week or two, those baskets were removed and we had another rain, and that runoff was pretty quick. We still have issues with the drainages being dredged. We're working with different departments and just a little more response, but that's not the case with all departments. We're having some difficulty with HPD as to when we make contact with residents. There are some residents that are in violation, repeat offenders, as we put it, as far as heavy trash, illegal dumping, 18-wheelers being parked in the community. And this was, I just recently brought this to the attention of Teresa, and of course she's going to jump on it immediately, but we've been asked not to go door to door. We've been asked not to meet with the inspectors, which one of our strategies before was making a report and registering it through 311. And then there was no follow-up with it. We had no interaction. We would see that the case was closed. The notes and specifications were very minimal as to what they did, but basically it was closed. They found no findings to support our complaints. So what we did is we started making these reports and requesting that the inspectors contact us prior to showing up, so that one of our team members would meet with them and be sure that they knew our concerns and give them knowledge of the community and things that were associated with those reports. And of course, we've got some signs, we've got the baskets removed from the drainage. So that has been really effective. Now, I guess I've been accused of being a little difficult with some residents, which I know that's not the case. I've always educated and tried to inform of the different things that are available to the residents of the community to get rid of and dispose of their trash and also comply. And that's a little upsetting to me, but as some of you may know, it's like I said, I don't quit anything, and I keep that pressure on, and I'm going to use you guys to help me kind of get that message across.
Thank you, Ray, for on one hand this positive note, and also for your incredible efforts in helping improve your neighborhood. Are there particular places where trash and illegal dumping is more prevalent and causes more flooding than in other places?
Yes, there is, and it's on a city easement, and we have some underground drainage systems, and 18-wheelers parking over those areas. They tend to create damage to those drainage systems. And the illegal dumping, you know, when it sits out there and it doesn't get picked up, all that debris winds up in our drainage systems. But I'll give you, for instance, on one street in particular, we've had two culvert drainages that I guess for the past 10 or 15 years, that street has been holding water. It covers almost 3/4 of the road. Myself and Julia, we went out and inspected those drains, and they were completely full with grass, and actually it became a flower bed. And we reported it to city. We met with the the inspectors and the crew, pointed out what our concerns with the drainage. They were cleaned within a week after that, and within our last few rains, no water is being retained or held on that street. So just minor little things that that I've always felt if they were addressed, we wouldn't have to have a whole lot of money put into our drainage systems, such as dredging. You know, that just seems like a simple thing. I'm sure it's somewhat costly, but it would improve the drainage in this community incredibly.
Immensely. Yeah.
And immensely. Yes. And
Thanks.
so we've seen things like that, and just educating the community and doing the illegal dumping. They've everybody is starting to know the rules. We're passing out pamphlets as to the citations and the schedules. So everybody's falling in compliance in our community, and that's Gulfway Terrace. But we still
Perfect. You're perfect. Can I give the floor? Sorry for interrupting. We have a limited time, so I really like to hear some other voices. Anyone else? Okay, then it's very, very, very quiet. Yeah, go ahead.
This is Danielle with the Community Ladders, working with the One Team. And I don't want to put Susan Rogers on the spot, but it's a great opportunity to maybe get some of your insights and perspective. We've studied your plans quite a bit. And if you see that there's anything here that we're missing or that we need to follow up on, you know, your guidance and expertise, having worked in this community before, and the incredible work that you do is very much welcome.
Hi, Danielle. I have been kind of going in and out, just so everybody knows. Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Rogers, the director of the Community Design Resource Center. And we worked with some leaders of Freeway Manor Civic Club about just after Harvey, so 2018, 2019, looking at Edgebrook. I'm happy to try to share a link to that plan in case somebody in the community might not have it. We did only work with leaders because it was a grant funded project, and we so it wasn't city sponsored, where there could be some resources available. But I think, you know, some of the key thing, obviously, I think what Ray has brought to your attention is really important as a community member. And I think the things that and there's been a lot of flood work by Harris County Flood Control District since Harvey. I think it'll be interesting. I hope that it will be really helpful. I also live on Berry Bayou, just down the street in Meadow Creek. So I also hope it doesn't make it flow too fast, but because we're downstream from you all. But I think, you know, some of the issues that we identified is that there's not any bus service. Obviously, the metro model, where ridership indicates where you put service, there's no ridership because there's no bus. So there's this like catch-22 about providing transit service in the neighborhood, and it's quite dense. I think about 8,000 people per square mile, which is, by Houston standards, double the density. I think that it's obviously a really strong community with homeowners and civic clubs and, you know, some really nice parks. I know Freeway Manor Park's being improved. I think there's some additional drainage projects on the horizon. 45 is right now being looked at by TxDOT. I don't know where that will go or if people are being involved in it, but I'm not sure if I'm adding anything of value. it's a dense community. There's very little vacant land. Yeah.
That was
Thank
helpful.
you. Thank you, Susan. We have from the community Curtis and Heather here. Maybe you'd like to weigh in, or shall we start talking about the impacts of extreme temperatures?
I've been here since 2018. I moved into the community. Since I've been here, at least on my road on Tarbell and on Tolman, we haven't had really any flooding issues since I've been here. I mean, I wasn't here for Harvey, but according to the previous homeowners, this home didn't flood during Harvey, which was a change, because prior to that, I know this area on Tarbell had been flooding. There's some issues with drainage systems being covered up and having grass and stuff like that in them. I usually go out to clean them out on Tarbell at least once a month, and pick up any garbage that's on the street, just so it doesn't get pushed into the drainage areas. But other than that, I don't have much to add.
Thank you, Curtis.
And same here. I'm with everything that Ray said. We do have issues with some of the drainage, but it looks like with all of our work, they have been pretty much cleared out. And with this last rain, everything looked, better than it used to. And with Harvey as well. I did not get flooded. The rain did come up pretty close to the house, but there was no flooding in the house. But I think with everybody's work with the team, we are getting a lot done. And thank you guys.
Does anyone feel that there are from those big storms, that there are particular things that need to be repaired and that haven't been repaired, rather than just making sure that future storms don't have these impacts? Are there really things that have been that the neighborhood has not been able to recover from? Since I get no answer, I'll go to the next topic of conversation, where we'd like to dive a bit deeper into extreme heat and cold, in which we are starting to see how that is increasingly a problem. Of course, we've had winter storm Uri, and I would like to understand how windstorm Uri has impacted you or your family or people that you know in the neighborhoods, and how maybe those experiences from windstorm Uri are also impacting the way you approach heat waves. We understand that in Houston there's a risk, or there's sort of warnings as heat waves are coming up upon us, to make sure that we need to conserve energy, and that there is the possibility of grid failure. And I'm just really curious to see how you are sort of preparing for that, and how do you see the community preparing for heat waves? Or you just say, well, Houston's hot. I don't think that's the case. You are preparing for this, right? Does anyone have any experiences or from Uri or from heat waves that you'd like to share?
I'll weigh in on that. I'm a contractor of about 40 years, and I'm still doing repairs. We have a big project right down the street off of Fuquay and 45, but just still working on freeze damage that either the funds weren't available to them, but in our community, we hear and when heavy trash is put out, they're still relating it to damage that they incurred back from Uri. So apparently it's still evident that some of those repairs, they weren't able to do those repairs, and that construction material is coming from I guess issues with broken pipes. And plumbing with plumbing, that's always going to be a fact. You're going to have lingering results, pipes, just the debris that was broken loose. So it's just going to be an ongoing thing. But that's what I notice with my interaction with the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Ray. Anyone else? Experiences? I think we're going to be done early today. Please go.
And I think the global warming and the climate change is definitely occurring. As of yesterday, the monarch butterfly is now endangered. And we usually, because we have planted in the front and the back to help pollinate, and we've only had a couple of the monarchs. I know it doesn't really pertain to what we're discussing. Now, in Harvey, we did have water enter, and of course we've done all, we didn't claim because a lot of the neighbors had 5 foot and we only had 10 inches. So we did the repairs and then went and helped neighbors. But I wanted to speak up because during Uri, we prepared, and when I say we prepared, as a former Girl Scout, we were, with my background, we had more than enough supplies for 2 adults and 2 dogs. And I guess maybe the second day, we ended up taking a house of 9 into, those 6 kids and the adults that came to stay with us. And in that moment, and my husband, like the 3rd day, approached me and said, "Julia, we're out of drinking water," because we keep the bottles of water. And we ran out of groceries because we had enough for the 2 of us. So that taught me that we need, when we prepare for storms, we need to prepare for the unimaginable, and not just prepare for our house, but in case we have to bring in survivors because they can't, they didn't have adequate shelter from that winter storm. But I think, in my opinion, the storms are going to get a global warming at its finest.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this story, and so much. Thank you for being a fantastic neighbor. Could you talk a bit more about that? How was, for instance, the other family or the people that you brought in not prepared? Maybe they were not Girl Scouts, but I think there's probably a couple of other things that made them not prepared.
They just, I would never, since then they have relocated. We saw to it that they relocated to a better housing, and I reach out and let her, let the mom know, hey, this is, you need to have this on hand, this and this and this. And she learned, they learned a lot during that, because of course, especially the little ones would not have survived if we had not opened our home to them. And every single one of them hugged us and was in tears when they walked through the door, because they wouldn't, like I said, and of course we have a 3-bedroom, and the smallest bedroom is my office. So, so there was only 2 beds, and unfortunate, but God made a way, and we made a big old pallet. We don't have carpet in the house, which is unfortunate. So we made it like we used our blow up mattress from the tent and just made a big old pallet for all the kids to lay in the living room, and did the best we could. But since then, I now stock up on beans and rice so that if something happens, we have enough to sustain however many people need to come. And I feel very fortunate that we were able to assist them in that time of need. And I'm not saying we wouldn't do it again, because that's not mine or my husband's nature. It just really, it took me for a loop, because we had more than enough to last us 6 months, but kids, they go through some stuff, man.
That's such a beautiful but heartbreaking
And
story.
and they showed up with no toothpaste, no nothing,
Yeah.
So, but anyways, but that's my take on it. So I just think that, the only way we can prepare for these storms is to prepare for the unimaginable. Who would have thought we would be facing COVID? And then when we did face COVID, who would have thought it would have lasted as long as it has?
Thanks, Julie. I've 2 follow-up questions. Ray talked a bit about how in relation to solid waste and illegal dumping, giving the right information and bringing out some city resources can create great improvements on that. Do you have the feeling that if we were to think about heat waves and cold snaps, that there are improvements to be made that could help families like the family or people like the people you hosted be more prepared? And do you have ideas about that? And I would also like to understand better, like now these people dependent on a good neighbor, a good Samaritan, are there particular places, institutions, or locations or buildings like schools or community centers or firehouses that can play a role in dealing with disasters that people can go to? And also there, the question is how can those be resourced, and how can people know where to go? Sorry for asking a number of questions, but
I'd like to add to that. So here in our last event that we had with Bible Way Church, they're one of the main food banks in Houston. And so our group, the Neighborhood Resilience Team, we've met with them. They've opened their doors to us as far as using their facilities for meetings and also trying to help the community. So that's one of the major sources in our community, and we're going to try to utilize that. That they have a food bank drive-through assistance on that every Tuesday and Thursday. So we're going to try to utilize those benefits. I don't believe a whole lot of people know about it, but that'll be a big resource for the community. Our civic club is going to try to work with them, of course, with the resilience team. Also, of course, my feelings are is if we can bring those big groups that are primarily setting up to assist the community, that we're going to do a back to school drive for, I guess, supplies and things for that on the 6th of August. I'm hoping that we can get the community involved in things like that. I feel because of COVID, the delay in people's enthusiasm, or that they just don't know these things are available. We need to push those things through the community. Also, we'll make contact with the fire departments, things of that sort. We're also starting a citizens citizens patrol here probably within the next month. That should be up and running. But all those things are going to see that the community is changing and we're getting some results rather than just being dormant for the past 2 years. So hopefully that'll open the door and people will see those results and want to partake. But like I told you earlier, we're still seeing results from Uri. We have a board member that had damage from Harvey, and we're trying to assist her. She's having a new house built, but those things those big projects take a long time, and you just got to keep pushing. Myself and Julia work with FEMA, so we're able to try to coordinate some of those things. Heather's been instrumental also in reaching out and trying to make contacts, but that's what we want to try to bring to the community. We're going to use those facilities either to meet and draw the community in, either through the civic clubs or through any events that we'll be able to do with the resiliency team. So I think that's going to be a big change.
Yeah, and Ray, do you think that those community groupings that they cover the entire neighborhood, or are they mostly? Is it easier to connect people in, let's say, part A of the neighborhoods and sort of part B are not really connected? Are there like a lot of differences between the people that live in multifamily houses and that live in single family houses? Do you all have any sort of understanding of what communities or what sub-communities the Edgebrook area sort of holds?
Yeah, well, with our meetings with the Bible Way Church, their congregation extends to Baytown, Southwest Houston, Alvin. So their congregation is actually a good form of getting the word out, advertising. So they're also organizing and setting up new churches. So that in itself, and them operating the food bank is getting the word out that is there. As far as our community, my intentions are to try to. Well, let me go back a little bit. Our event, we did interview a lot of the people that were coming, and I don't know the actual results on the surveys that they took from those people, but I feel that it's probably from the immediate area as far as Pasadena and things like that. But I've heard that they're coming from outside of Houston and they're taking advantages. I'm not so sure within our community in general, which may be a good thing. That means they probably don't need the assistance, but I'm not certain. I'd have to refer back to Danielle or Teresa as to what those results or that survey produced.
My concern is, and I brought this up to the group on, I think maybe on the first call that I was on, my concern is that it is an older generation, I believe, and with all due respect, I say that, and that generation is not going to reach out if they need housing or due to gas prices with the upcoming, we're in the middle of, not in the middle, but we're in hurricane season. If there's a challenge filling their gas tank at this time, if there's an evacuation order, and they're unable to leave, or if their house is, I know right now there's a grant. If your windows are more than 5 years old, you can replace your windows with new storm windows. But they won't reach out because that generation does not reach out.
Yeah. And do you know, I have here a map of the community and the parks and different facilities that are there. Do you feel that what are the places to sort of reach those other generations, and what are the places that those other generations sort of use? I think that's one question. And the second question that I have is, how is I see a lot of healthcare facilities. How do you feel that the access to those healthcare facilities is, and the role that they play in the community? Any thoughts on where this other generation can be found?
My comments on that is interacting with these people, and these are some of the original residents, and I've gone door to door. I just met a gentleman the other day that's 92, and he's going to assisted living, and I regret that I didn't meet him a year ago. I mean, just so informative. He was involved with the community also, but they're just not up on the technology. Neither am I, but I'm learning as I go. I have my daughter here sitting here with me and helping me manipulate this laptop. So, but I think that's the what they're experiencing out there, and going door to door for me and meeting these people is just amazing. They're able to, tell me about the things that they're experiencing, but that's what I'm hearing from the elderly. As far as Ripley House down on Fairmont, they just remodeled, so that's something that's available also. And we do have various medical facilities all around us. I mean, they're just they just kind of popping up. So those things are available, but as we all know, for senior citizens, it's they're no longer. Some of them aren't driving, and some of them are just need a little more assistance. My communication with them, and I stress this on our team members, if we're able to make contact with them, take notes, give them our numbers in the event that they need assistance, they can contact us. I'm doing that personally with a few kids that we have in our community that are autistic and have run out and gotten lost. We kind of put in place emergency contacts so that if they get out of the house, we can contact each other and start roaming the community looking for them. Because again, we have issues with our patrols. I mean, they have increased them with HPD, but I think with the Citizens Patrol and being self-sufficient, that all those things are going to improve and give us reassurance that we can take care of our own community within the members and the residents. So, but for the most part, I think all those things are available. For elderly people, it seems like it might be a little more difficult, and just provide them with the team members, the civic club, to be able to call and ask for assistance also.
Great. Does anyone, I mean, we're about 15 minutes before the end. Does anyone from the city or from the team have any further questions for the community members, or shall we switch to Lynn to conclude this meeting?
Hearing no other questions from the other city staff, want to make sure I'm looking in the chat to see who's all here. I think we can conclude the meeting. I want to thank everyone for their input, their continued support of your community. That's important in order to make your community resilient. It is really about who is in the community, who is active and participating. Please sign in if you haven't. We will post information about the next step in the next public meetings on our social media, send out emails if we have your email address, and of course, connect with the community advocates that you've been in contact with so far regarding today's meeting. I will wish you all a very beautiful day today. looks like it is a hot one, but it is beautiful outside. So if you have an opportunity, get out and enjoy the day. I appreciate your time and thank you for coming.
Thank you for your time. It's been really, really appreciated. And what we are now doing in the next months is to sort of from all these learnings to come up with a series of concepts and initiatives that we think can build on the work that's already happening and earlier plans and bring them together in a strategy. And what we would like to do is to spend time with you in late September, maybe early October, to go over that and have you reflect on that, but also to think with you how we can bring those to implementation and what the role of you and the community at large in bringing these forward can be. So all of you, thank you very much for your time. Have a lovely weekend.